The statistics favor the Miami Hurricanes, but will the scoreboard at the end of the Florida State-Miami game?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Just download the FanDuel app today. We're going to be talking about several questions that I have, not only for Florida State, but for Miami going into this game, because this is about matchups. If you do not place the best players in the best positions to win, their talent is not going to be maximized, and you can quickly lose. This will be a chess match between both staffs, Florida State and Miami, because they are very different football teams, as we will explain throughout this pod. And to begin, statistics. These stats don't lie, or do they? We're going to talk about why the numbers are what they are, but this early in the season, you've got to calculate a little bit. There's some projection, and if you don't, you're not going to get a clear look at what really happened so far and what's next for each of the Noles and the Canes. So with that, first off, these are just basic numbers here. And I don't think anybody's going to be shocked, to be honest with you, on what these teams are doing offensively, defensively. It's really not anything different than you would hear any other year. But there are a couple of numbers that don't tell the whole story, and I'll go into that. And number one here would be sacks. This is where it's a little funky. Both teams are ranked 55th with 10 sacks. And that sounds probably a little crazy. I thought Florida State didn't have much of a pass rush. Well, they build up their stats against a couple of teams that weren't as good. And to a certain degree, Miami did as well. Just ironically, one of them was Florida and another was USF, teams that have some talent, but they're just not as good as Miami's front. And especially in the case of Florida, I like USF's coach a lot. Coach is pretty good. They just overwhelmed UF. And then Notre Dame's had a young line, a young quarterback. And then Florida State, the two games in the middle after they played Bama, before they played Virginia, they were terrible. So what is the truth with these teams? This is where Miami has the biggest edge in this game. And I wanted to bring it to the forefront right from the get-go. Ruben Bain and Akeem Mazda are excellent football players on the edge. If one of these two teams has big advantage in any one category, it's really specifically this, not just pass rush, rushing with 4. I talked about this for the last 2 weeks with Florida State, and they have failed. They have failed. They are not good enough rushing 4, especially getting pure outside, twitchy, bend the edge, get around the tackle with pure speed and athleticism sacks. They haven't done it. That's not necessarily Miami's best way to get to the quarterback, although they are way better at it than Florida State, and their power rush is also better. Both Messidor and Bain are tremendous. I expect both to play in the NFL. If Florida State does not find a way to rush with 4, especially in critical situations, it's going to be difficult. Now, Miami's tackles are up and down, just like everybody else playing pass pro and obvious passing. You're going to miss. You're going to have some plays that don't go your way. Maui Noah, the big tackle for Miami, I know him, great guy. He's going to be a first-round pick. But he has some problems in pass pro once in a while. Can Florida State get to the quarterback, Carson Beck, in one-on-ones when it matters? Red zone. When Miami's backed up, if they're at their own 8-yard line, 3rd and 9. Stuff like that where you can create havoc. There's only going to be 2 to 4 plays like that probably in the game that really change the game beyond just getting a sack. You got to knock the ball loose. You got to have a definitive way to create a turnover. It is, as I like to say on this show, a checkbox. Some way, somehow, Florida State's got to get home with 4 a couple of times, even if that means just the ball pops up in the air, completes to the wrong team for Miami, if you will. You got to get an interception or a strip sack fumble or something. That is a key. Miami's been pretty good at getting to the QB, and they haven't had as many fumbles out of it as I would think. There's a couple of times I thought the ball was going to come loose. They're due for it as well. So let's flip it around. Florida State, I don't think their tackles are as good as Miami's. I don't. They're not bad, but they're better, in my opinion, playing downhill and running the football, despite what Pro Football Focus says. For whatever reason, they got the Noles as a better pass blocking team than run blocking. I don't agree with that. But the bottom line is still the same. Florida State, they probably have better players playing downhill. How are they going to do when it's 3rd and 7 and Tommy's back there? If they have to chip every single time on one of those two guys, if not both, they're not winning this game. You can do it once in a while, but come hell, come high water, Florida State has to be able to block with just 5 against their 4, and they'll play a pretty conservative defense for most of the game. Miami doesn't have to rush more than that, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't do it that much either if I didn't have to. Heatherman's a good defense coordinator. He'll throw in some blitzes here or there, but with Bain and Messidor, until you prove you can block them with 5, he's not going to bring extras. And that's going to make it a lot more difficult on Tommy and everybody he tries to throw the football to. A couple other stats, it's ironic. They're the exact same for both teams on defense. Tackles for loss, 26 for both teams. Turnovers created for both teams is both 6. So, I mean, they're pretty similar. Rushing defense, Miami's is even better than Florida State's. They give up 76 yards a game. Florida State's is really good as well, 111. Passing D, Miami 184. Florida State 184, Miami 168. Third down defense, this is probably the one that I think Miami holds another really big edge. They've only give up 12 first downs out of 50 attempts. That's 24%. That's elite. Florida State's is pretty good, but it's not in the same stratosphere. 19 out of 56, 33.9%. That's solid. It's 42nd. But Miami's getting off the field. They're rushing with 4 and having more success. The quarterbacks they're going against are having to see a guy in their face a lot quicker than what Florida State's opponents are. That's the difference. So I just wanted to bring that up again. One other note on defense. We'll see which one is deeper. Now that both teams are 4 games in, both of them got some bumps and bruises. And as I always say here, don't believe any form of a depth chart or injury report for either team. Complete BS. Don't believe it. Don't do it. Don't do it, especially if you're betting on this game. Miami in particular, Cristobal, is the worst in the country about giving any form of an accurate injury report. 0 chance of that. So who knows who's really going to play and how healthy they are for both teams, but they both play physical downhill football. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the offensive numbers, and then I've got some questions for both teams. The areas that I think are going to dictate who wins and who loses. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, and it is also the top safety pick for awards so far through August of 2025. You can make every drive feel like anything but, and from smooth handling all the way to the intuitive controls, Mazda's got you covered. Like our players, we sweat every detail, and because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This show is also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture with your finances, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire portfolio in one clean, easy-to-use interface for your phone or for your computer. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can get all your accounts linked in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get everything you need in one place for all your spending and feel in control of your money. If you're just trying to plan for your future, for retirement, if you're trying to plan for your granddaughter or anything else, this is the way to go because it keeps everything in one place for you. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Please like and subscribe if you have not already become an everydayer. Let's talk some offensive numbers for FSU and Miami. Passing offense, 263.8 for the Noles, 42nd nationally. Miami, 270 yards per game through the air, 33rd. For the rush, 336 yards per game for the Noles, 180.5 for the Canes. Total offense, Florida State, they're number 1 in the nation, 600 total yards, while Miami's not too shabby either, 450. They're 29th. Scoring, Florida State 53rd, they're number 1 there as well. And Miami's at 36.8, number 31 in the nation. Now, I said at the beginning of the show, some of these numbers can lie. Florida State completely ran it up on 2 bad opponents. And then Miami's style of play is a little bit misleading. Their job is to grind it into the dirt, at least from Mario Cristobal's perspective, because that's what they want to do. Pound everybody in the dirt, just run the football. They haven't really, in my opinion, unleashed Carson Beck. When he played at UGA, he had a lot of games where he threw for over 250 without anything needed, and he made it look pretty easy. That game last year that Georgia got down, 28-0 against Bama? They actually took that lead in that game before they lost. He fought back, and I think he had over 400 yards. If he needs to spin it, he can. Is Miami's situation similar to what Georgia's was last year? I don't know. Georgia's wide receiver group was funky, but they had their games. They had some moments against Alabama. But let's see what they do if Florida State gets up. That's the only way we're going to find out how much Carson Beck can pass. Mario is the most conservative coach in major college football. Offensively, it's not close. I mean, he'd be happy if that forward pass was not a part of football. He's that guy. Having said that, if they need to, they've got enough weapons, you would think they can unleash some of them. I need to see what Joshua Moore can do in big situations, and I need to see what some of their young receivers can do against a defense that's going to change after the snap a lot. Malachi is a young kid. He's really good. Joshua Fields is a young kid. He's really good. JoJo Trader hasn't played much. He's supposed to be back. All these guys for Miami, how will they adapt to Miami's situation of not just going up against basic zone defenses? I think Florida State is going to have the most complex defense they've seen by a million miles, and it only takes 1 or 2 plays to change a game. I don't think Beck will be the one that throws interceptions as much as it's more likely that some of the young receivers misread what they see after the snap and don't settle in the zones correctly. If Florida State gets turnovers, look for that to be a problem. Not saying Beck is perfect, but he is one of the best zone passing quarterbacks in the country. If Florida State just runs generic zone, he will absolutely shred them. But I don't think Tony White's going to do that. You're going to see a lot of stuff they have not shown yet this year. Guaranteed. If they don't get 1 or 2 turnovers out of it, Miami's going to win. This game is going to come down to that. And also, again, the pass rush. Turnovers are key at every game, and Florida State's defense is annoying to prepare for. Let's see what Tony White pulls out of his bag. And finally, here are a few questions that I have about this game just for fun. These are some of the things that I think are going to be very, very important. We'll see where it goes. Coach Johnson talked about Rodell coming back and what it means. His leadership was one of the first things he talked about. And he also discussed something, he said it so well, physicality. And he said not just running the ball, pass protection. When Florida State does leave somebody in, Rodell Williams is probably going to be a guy that's in there a majority of the time, assuming he's truly healthy and he plays. Again, I trust no injury report. And he's proven it. He did it at Alabama last year. He did it at Florida State last season, or Alabama prior, then Florida State last season. And he only played a little bit against Alabama before he got banged up. Now that he's healthy, look for him to be in the game, not just to run the ball, but to be a big part of pass pro. Am I right in that he will do very well? Or is Miami going to be able to get by him? They're going to try to get to Tommy and fluster him. Let's see if they can. I think Rodell is a very big part of the game, not just running the ball, but in pass pro as well. Florida State, this is something I've complained about. Their screen game has not been up to what I think it should be. I'm not talking about throwing the ball down the field to running backs or checkdowns. I mean, traditional screens and especially wide receiver screens. Those quick screens where the tackle's got to get outside. I don't think Florida State's tackles are the most athletic in the world. I think they're more power guys. They need to find a way to run some screens for Squirrel White. Simple question. Does it happen or not? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because Miami can run and they really pursue the ball. Give them credit. As a defense, they hustle. It's what you should do. You're Miami. You've got all the athletes. Now you got to put it together. A lot of different years they didn't do that. This team absolutely does. If Florida State does not find a way to get the ball to Squirrel and Will Wayne, and guys like that in space, they might throw some to Deuce, but probably the smaller guys. Jalen Lucas, you've got to get the first guy out of the way. After that, and somebody like, for instance, Jalen Lucas sizes somebody up one-on-one, good luck to that player. FSU's got plenty of twitchy receivers. But so far, the pass blocking, well, it's been pretty solid. The screen game blocking for the receivers, not the greatest. Need to see not just an upgrade for Florida State. Will it be a major upgrade? That is paramount. Next, talked about Squirrel and McCray. Been asking for this for 3 weeks, I think it is. When do the tight ends become very involved in the basic passing game? The catch by Pittman in the end zone and all that aside, he's been pretty good when he's been able to play. They really haven't used the tight ends much. There is not a game on the slate this weekend or any other weekend in college football where the opposing defense for any offense has the advantage on tight ends and running backs. Linebackers are not good in coverage. If they were, they'd be safeties or they'd be corners. It's just the way it is. Florida State needs to take advantage of the middle of the field more than they have so far this year. To be honest, Miami does too. Elijah Lofton, for Miami, I think he's an NFL player. They really haven't thrown it to him that much. Which team takes advantage of their tight end talent? They both have NFL players. Both of them. Landon Thomas, Amari Williams, definitely Randy Pittman. Florida State, they're good to go. Elijah Lofton's just one. They got a couple other guys that they're touting, but they haven't used them. Does Miami maybe use some of their tight ends? Again, I need to see it. We just don't know. But Florida State and Miami's defenses, while they've got good linebackers, I don't think either one of them will do well against the other in one-on-one coverage. Linebackers are not meant for coverage. Which team takes advantage of the opposing defense? Then this is the one that I'm not really sure how it's going to go, but we'll see. In the first quarter, you know what Miami is averaging per carry? 5.5 yards per carry. It's only 4 to 4.5 in the second, third, fourth quarters. But for whatever reason, Miami's run game comes out hitting hard. And I'm pretty sure Jordan Lyle is going to be ready for this game too. So if they've got all three running backs, they're good to go. They might have the best 1-2-3 punch in the country. It's certainly up there. Florida State's is really good too. Which team does a better job on first down runs? Both teams are power football. Both teams want to run inside. Florida State's more inside zone, whereas Miami runs a little bit more duo, but it's the same principle. Get a hat on a hat. Let's move somebody out of the way and let our bigger, stronger athletes at running back kind of forge out some space and then fall forward. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel at either school. They're trying to do that, though, to set up their short passing games, and in Florida State's case, their home run shots. Florida State's is a little different offense, obviously, because there's so much option based off of it. There's so many things that misdirection. If you noticed, by the way, last week, Florida State didn't run anywhere near as much shifts and motions. You're going to see everything in the world this week from Gus Malzahn. They're going to try to catch him off guard. We'll see how that works. Finally, on this point, does Carson, I just got a feeling on this. We know Tommy's going to run. That's part of his MO. Does Carson Beck go and get some yardage? Do not discount him as a runner. It's not his forte, but Carson Beck has some speed. I think if he's capable of getting 2 or 3 first downs for Miami, just, traditional scrambles, that could be a big help to the Canes. Florida State's rush ends and linebacker safeties, they cannot discount him going out and getting some yardage, especially third and fourth down. Watch out for Carson Beck. We come back, I've got a few more questions and a few more thoughts on Florida State and Miami. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you can't miss out on. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 to get $300 in bonus bets if you win that bet. That's right, pick a bet, $5 down, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets. And you can use them on all kinds of different things, whether it's a parlay, whether it's player props, whether it's a halftime score, maybe it's something else. Whatever it is you want to do with that $300 on FanDuel, it's up to you. So what are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Square. Square is the opportunity for you to help your local neighborhood, and your neighborhoods need your help all the time because there's nothing like that local cafe, that local restaurant, or that local place where you go get your car worked on. Try to support them. These businesses make your neighborhood what they are. And without them, it's not that fun to be in a place where it's just all corporate stuff. So try to support them. And whenever you can and your neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood's going to thrive. And Square's a part of that because they are the ones that kind of help you. You swipe or you tap, they're the one right down there for you to do it. So for me, and there's different places like this all around the country, in Tallahassee, there's numerous places that are close to Florida State that are neighborhood spots. Black Dog, there's all kinds of little cafes, place to get your car fixed, get your hair done, whatever it is, and Square supports them. So Square is a proud partner of over 4 million neighborhood businesses, and you can go to square.com/go/Locked On College to learn more, and you'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Here are a few more questions that I have for the game that I think is kind of intriguing, and they're both in different directions for each team. Let's start with the deep ball. Florida State has been insanely good with the deep ball this year. Tommy is number one, I believe, in the nation right now in yards per attempt, and yards per attempt over 20 yards down the field. That's good. But Miami plays a lot of defense that's based on just keeping everything in front of them, rally to the ball. We're just going to out-athlete you. A lot of what they've shown defensively is very basic because they're good and they don't have to show a lot. Now, they'll show some more. They'll blitz a little more against Florida State, but they're going to play a lot of over-the-top defense. They know Florida State has Deuce, and they know they got Wayne. They know they got big receivers, speedy receivers, running backs running wheel routes. You're going to see a lot of cover 2, cover 3 at least at the beginning of the snap. They may change some of that afterwards, but they're going to try to keep everything in front of them and see if Florida State implodes, kind of like it did against Virginia. I wouldn't blame Heatherman at all if that's the game that he called. Florida State just did it in the last game. So let's see if they can be patient and grind out 10, 11, 12, 13 play drives against the front seven that's very good. That won't be easy, but I expect Florida State, again, they're going to have some stuff that Miami hasn't seen yet. They're going to need gash plays. Florida State overall, by the way, needs more gash plays than Miami. It's just how their offense is set up. But with that said, if they could hit just 1 or 2 plays over 20 yards, or they like literally get it over their heads with the speed that the Noles have, they could score a couple touchdowns on 70-yard plays. Tommy needs to be accurate in this game down the field. Likewise, Florida State runs a lot of stuff in pre-snap, showing 3 safeties across the front. They may run cover 4. They may go man. They may go cover 0 once or twice. I don't know. But Miami has really tried to focus on short to intermediate passes. They don't throw deep much. Is that just because that's what they want? Because of what teams have shown? Some of the teams they played have played pretty conservative defense, but Florida didn't all the time. Miami still chose to be very conservative with their play calling, and Florida did tackle pretty well. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to throw it down the field at least a little bit more, take 2 or 3 more shots. It's Florida State, Miami. You're going to have a few plays. Maybe it's a trick play. Coach Dawson's very good coordinator for Miami. I expect him to try to find a way to get the ball over Florida State's head. It'll be difficult because they do have a disciplined group of safeties. But who knows? Again, double pass. Maybe it's a flea flicker, something. And there's always just a straight-up go route. Malachi Toney, JoJo Trader, one of those guys, they might throw it up to him. Does Florida State win those battles or does Miami? Those are the things that are just really fascinating when you have this many athletes going against each other. I don't know who's going to win them, but they're going to dictate who ends up winning the game. Final point. Who is the player that I'm not talking about, that people that write about or talk about Miami isn't talking about, that's going to change the game? Some of these stats that I've talked about, they're interesting, but they don't tell the whole story. Again, we're only 4 games into the season. You need to be 7 or 8 games in to really know, through several conference games, etc. Neither team's to that point. So which player or players do you think end up being the surprise players for either the Noles, the Canes, or both? For me, I'm just going to talk about Miami for a second for the Noles fans here. There are a couple of guys that I think are not just good for Miami, they kind of fit what they need. And maybe they step up big, maybe they don't, but I'm sure they're going to try. Let's talk about the passing game since we're just on that. Wide receiver Joshua Moore is a true freshman. Had a chance to meet him before his junior year. That's a big kid. He's from South Florida, 6'3", 6'4". He can really run. He's a little raw, but he's already broken into the rotation from game 1. I think he's a guy that Miami will try to get the ball to, and he doesn't know the route tree like some junior or senior. But a go route or a stop and go or a deep end, he's got a big frame. He could be a key for Miami. On the defensive side of the ball, I like both their corners, but let's also talk about some of the other guys they've had that have done pretty well. I don't know why he's picked it up so well, but Jacoby Thomas, he's a transfer. I forget where he came in from. I've been impressed with him. Not only playing in the back end, but coming downhill and being an aggressive player against the run. Do Florida State's running backs, when he does come down, make him miss? He's a good tackler. And it's something Miami didn't have at all last year. Their defensive secondary was one of the worst in the country, G5 or P4, at tackling. He's not one of those guys. He's helped change the attitude of Miami, and he's somebody that Florida State fans should absolutely know about. So I think this is a really unique matchup. And some of the stats, again, they're fun, but the matchups are more important. Who wins the deep ball? Who wins offensive tackle, defensive end? Those are some of the things that I'm going to be watching for. In an otherwise just great game, I expect it to be close throughout and go down to the final 4 minutes for who wins. So we'll talk about it more as the week goes on. But thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.